everybody, welcome back to another video. Hope you guys have been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. I am heading off to work, as you can tell, and had a interesting moment not too long ago with banging my head on this door by accident. I don't know, I guess I wasn't paying attention, so yeah, heading off to work, and while we're driving, excuse me, I'm a little bit dry throat as well. Just waking up and everything. I figured while we are heading off to work, I figured to just touch on this little thing that I've been kind of just been in my head since I think yesterday. I could be wrong. It's an interesting topic. I just feel like kind of discussing it. Which is just briefly, it's more of a question, I guess, just to you guys, just if you guys have experienced this with watching films. Have you ever seen narratives that are fairly gaslighting? Films that are kind of condescending to you, or they feel that they need to talk down to you a lot. I mean, in the general conversation of what we do discuss on this channel, I feel like we've touched on that a couple of times, so it's not super surprising to say that there are films that act like that. I think that there probably is more examples back then in late early days of film when it was being brought up. In the case of most recently, we talked about The Wizard of Oz, which I wasn't too crazy about. That was a film that came out in 1939, so right in the early 40s, late 30s, and when discussing how they characterized Dorothy, I felt that they made her out to be not as a victim of her circumstance, because she is a victim of her circumstance, as more or less the provoker, the person who is creating the issues and is not inherently within a issue itself. And I think that's ill-judged. I think that paints a certain light, and it forms a presentation of message that does not feel warranted or feel as weightful. It just doesn't translate well into modern language or today's sensibilities. And then in that sense, it comes off fairly gaslighting, at least to me. And to extend further on that, it kind of, in some ways, connecting to the Christmas season, because we will be doing some holiday films here and there. It's just been, like I said, it's been real busy lately, so I just have not had a lot of time to just put out content consistently. So just my bad on that. But to extend an olive branch, just to blend it with today's time, being Christmas. Look at the story of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, for example. The original film we can talk about. That one's also fairly condescending as well, because think about how they paint Rudolph as a character. Rudolph is born with an abnormality, and the original, the reaction to that is to hide it and to shame him basically for having such a thing. But until it becomes useful, then all of a sudden it's acceptable. That's the message. That's literally what is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is. As long as your abnormality is useful, then we'll be accepting of it. If it's not, then it's just a weird, awful, just a nuisance that does not need to be permitted into our society. That's the messaging there. And I want to say that people have taken issue with that as well. I don't think I'm one of the minority to bring this up. I feel like it's a conversation that's had recently with discussing that film. So, and it's for good reason too. It's messaging like that, while on the statement of what you're talking about, it could be nice. I mean, it could be actually very very informative and very meaningful, but it's about the delivery of that message that ultimately solidifies your overall intent, your overall outlook of it, because it just is very ignorant, you know? All it does is confirm a side of ignorance within such a statement, within the packaging of that statement. Because, I mean, I was discussing those two films, Wizard of Oz and Rudolph, you know, like Wizard of Oz, you know, it's about selfishness and selflessness, and those themes are genuine, and can be very thought-provoking if done, you know, exercised or executed in a specific way. And then, of course, you know, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, of course, is about, you know, acceptance of others and about their, you know, being able to recognize people as people, you know. But the problem in those line of thinking is ultimately how they choose to represent it, and the journey that they take feels more or less of a condescending motive rather than a sympathetic thing. You know, I don't feel as much sympathy for Rudolph and Dorothy because I'm always thinking about how the overall manner of the film is, and it is fairly, like I said, it's like it's approaching it to where my actual, you know, sympathy, the thing that I should be feeling the most, is becoming more and more less concerning or becoming diminished, ultimately because the filmmaking itself is more concerned with a certain behavior that frankly is very ignorant, you know, and it isn't to where it is, you know, to where it paints a certain color or a certain view of this character. It actually talks down to the characters. It doesn't inform or, you know, elevate or empower these characters. It really talks down to them. And that's, I don't think, appropriate, especially within the context of who these characters are. They're very innocent, you know, things that just happen to be victims of circumstance, victims of just life. You know, in the case of Rudolph, he never asked for a red nose. I mean, it's just how it happened. It's an abnormality. It happens. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, if you want to get real, I mean, there's things that provoke those things, that allow those things to shape. But in the case of Dorothy, she's a victim of neglect, and she isn't feeling appreciated, you know, and to talk down to her more it's not fostering in a good behavior or a good translation of message. It's just kind of in some ways bathing in what it is that you're discussing about neglect and stuff like that. You're ultimately just acting as so towards your characters, and that's not appropriate in my opinion, at least in an overall translation of what it is you're discussing and the weight of those feelings. It just is not completely felt. So that's what I've noticed lately. You know, I just been noticing that there's been some very, like, especially looking into like classic type films, it's just, I noticed this mentality is there, and like I'm curious if you guys can like pick up a modern example, because I mean, I could think of films that are fairly narcissistic, you know, films that are just going about their message in a blatant and strong form that clearly is wrong, clearly is ignorant, clearly is biased, all that stuff. You know, I'm trying to think of a film right now where I can say that. It's hard for me to say right now, but I've definitely seen films like that. But I'm curious what you guys can think of as a modern example, and you know, if there's any other classic films that you can think that you look at the messaging of and you're just like, that doesn't really sit as well today as it probably was back then, you know, because just we're a different society, or the sensibilities have changed, so it's just not the same as it used to be. So I don't agree with how the sensibilities, I agree with the message itself, I just don't agree with how that message is ultimately sort of fed to me. So, but you guys, what are your thoughts? Do you guys feel the same? Do you guys feel that some films just don't hold up, you know, or don't really execute or present their messages in a very reasonable manner? let me know. Let me know some examples from back then, in the modern era, if you guys can think of any. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.